Imagine you earn, say, $100,000 a year.
Pretty standard baseline.
Right. And conventional wisdom says you are basically locked into a 40-year grind. You save a respectable percentage, you commute 5 days a week, and then eventually, if the markets actually cooperate, you get your gold watch and a retirement cake at age 65.
If you're lucky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if there was like a mathematical cheat code to cut that timeline down to just 3 years, or maybe 7? We are jumping straight into the ultimate financial rabbit hole today. We're looking at the mechanics of retiring early.
And we are definitely tossing out that generic, skip your daily latte advice.
Oh, absolutely. Our sources for this deep dive have mapped out this sprawling landscape of 15 distinct strategies to achieve financial independence. And they track this hypothetical $100,000 earner across a 30-year horizon.
It's a really comprehensive framework.
It is. And our mission today is to decode these paths so you, listening right now, can figure out exactly which flavor of financial independence fits your personality, your risk tolerance, and your timeline. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, to map this out effectively, we really have to establish the gravitational pull of this whole concept. The sources anchor basically everything around William Bengen's famous 4% rule.
Right, the golden rule of early retirement.
Exactly. Since we are all pretty familiar with the mechanics of Bengen's research, we know about that magic 25 times multiplier.
So wait, just to be super clear on the math?
Yeah, if you want to withdraw 4% safely every year, you basically take your desired annual spending and multiply it by 25.
Okay.
So for our 100K earner wanting to live on, say, $40,000 a year, the target portfolio isn't even $1 million.
$1 million.
Right. And the baseline path to get there, which is usually called traditional FIRE, takes this individual roughly 16 years. That's by consistently saving 30 to 50% of their income in low-cost index funds.
That 16-year track is incredibly reliable. Yeah, I like to think of it as the financial crock pot.
The crock pots.
Yeah. You set it, you let the compound interest simmer, and dinner is eventually ready. It just takes time. But the sources highlight an absolute speed run that bypasses the crock pot entirely.
Oh, yeah, the 3-year plan.
Right. If you want out in the 3 years, you have to build an asset. It's called Entrepreneur Fire. You launch an e-commerce brand or scale a SaaS product or, I don't know, build a content agency.
So you're aiming for a massive liquidity event.
Exactly. You want to sell the business for that $1.5 to $2 million lump sum, or at least generate permanent passive cash flow. So it's basically throwing your dinner into a microwave that might cook it in 3 minutes.
Or it might literally explode.
Yeah, exactly. It might explode. The volatility is completely off the charts. You might catch lightning in a bottle, or you might lose everything.
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying tax mechanics. That's what actually makes it mathematically viable.
How so?
The sources stress that if you are generating significant operating income through a business, you have to shield it aggressively to maintain that 3-year velocity. You aren't just putting cash in a standard brokerage account.
You'd get killed by taxes.
Right. You are utilizing vehicles like a solo 401k or a SEP IRA. A solo 401k allows you to act as both the employee and the employer.
Oh, wait, so you get double the contribution space.
Exactly, meaning you can shelter up to $72,000 a year from taxes. That maneuver alone creates a massive accelerant. You are legally bypassing the tax drag that W-2 earners usually face.
So you are keeping the capital working for you rather than handing, a third of it to the IRS.
Exactly.
But let's be real. Pouring your life savings in every waking hour into a startup is a risk profile most people simply cannot stomach.
It's definitely not for everyone.
No. So if we step away from the explosive microwave, the sources point to manipulating the timeline through extreme front-loading. Which brings us to the concept of coast fire.
The math on coast fire is super interesting.
It is. So our 100K earner aggressively saves $40,000 a year, but they only do it for 5 years.
Right.
If they start at age 23, they amass about $253,000 by age 28, and then they just turn the savings spigot completely off.
They never invest another dime.
That is wild to me.
Well, the engine driving coast fire is the sheer duration of tax-free compounding. If they shelter that 253 grand in a Roth IRA and a traditional 401k and literally leave it untouched for 39 years.
Until they're 67.
Exactly. The historical market returns will balloon that initial seed money to over $5 million.
$5 million from just 5 years of work.
Yeah. Once that early baseline is set at age 28, the pressure just vanishes. They can take a lower paying, lower stress job because they only need to earn enough to cover their, Tuesday morning grocery bills. The future is entirely funded by that background compounding.
I mean, I see the mathematical beauty of it, but I had to push back on the reality of that lifestyle.
You don't think it's practical?
Well, you are essentially trapping yourself in a half-decade of misery. You're living on a brutally strict budget during your prime 20s, eating rice and beans, isolating yourself from social events, all just to hit a checkpoint.
It's a huge sacrifice up front.
And the ultimate reward for that sacrifice. You still have an alarm clock going off every morning for the next 30 years. You still have a boss.
Just a slightly lower stress boss.
Right. Is that intense front-loaded sacrifice actually worth it if your daily autonomy hasn't fundamentally changed?
That exact friction is why the digital nomad strategy exists in the sources.
Okay, let's talk about the nomad.
Yeah, so if Coastfire prioritizes future security over current comfort, the nomad path weaponizes geographical cost differences to maximize immediate freedom.
So year 8 on our timeline.
Exactly. You build a remote income stream, maybe freelance writing or consulting, and you physically relocate your life to a lower cost of living area.
Like Bali or Colombia.
Right. You might be earning a U.S.-based salary, but spending in Thai baht or Colombian pesos. You aren't fully retired. I mean, you're still actively working to cover costs.
Right, you still have deadlines.
Yes, but the geographic arbitrage creates massive margins in your budget. That allows you to experience the world right now, rather than waiting for an account balance to hit a specific threshold.
So for you listening, this basically boils down to a brutal honesty test about your own psychology.
Totally.
Would you rather lock yourself in a room and sprint for 5 years so your future is bulletproof?
Oh.
Or are you willing to maintain a slow, steady hustle while packing a laptop and moving to a beach, letting currency exchange rates fund your lifestyle?
Both definitely require friction.
Yeah, it's just a matter of where you place that friction on your timeline.
Now, if manipulating your location or front-loading your 20s feels entirely out of reach, the math kind of forces us to look at the only other variable you control.
The denominator.
Exactly. Your expenses. Every dollar you cut from your budget isn't just a dollar saved. Under that 25 times rule, it is $25 you no longer need to accumulate.
Which leads us to the extreme frugality path.
Right. Our owner slashes their lifestyle to the absolute bone. They live on just 25 to 30% of their income.
That is aggressive.
Very. They are spending maybe $25,000 a year and saving a massive $50,000 annually after taxes.
I mean, taking a machete to your lifestyle in today's economy requires an almost monastic discipline. We were talking about multiple roommates in a shoebox apartment. Zero car payments.
Shopping exclusively at the deepest discount supermarkets.
Yeah, and basically turning into a power user on the r/frugal subreddit. The sources even highlight a specific anecdote about this. A coworker who bought the exact same $125 bulk meal prep to eat every single day.
Every day.
Every single day. Just to keep costs perfectly fixed and predictable.
Well, the acceleration of doing that is undeniable, though. If you only need $30,000 a year to survive, your target portfolio shrinks to just $750,000.
Because of the multiplier.
Exactly. And by investing $50,000 a year at a standard 8% market return, you cross that finish line in roughly 9 years.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. At what point does hyper-optimizing your budget cross the line from financial freedom into a self-imposed prison of deprivation?
That's the big question.
Right. If your spreadsheet dictates that you can't go out for a coffee with a friend without re-inning your monthly projections, you have technically bought your time back, but you've optimized the actual joy out of your life.
You're just staring at a wall for 50 years.
Exactly. You are chained to that $30,000 existence indefinitely. If you ever want a nicer apartment or, I don't know, a sudden vacation, the math completely shatters.
And the psychological toll of that extreme deprivation is a frequent breaking point for people, which is why the counter strategy the source is present is lean
A
fire.
slightly looser built.
Yeah, it operates on the same premise of reduced consumption, but builds in a crucial shock absorber for your sanity. Instead of suffocating yourself with a $25,000 budget, you allow for 35 to 40,000 a year.
Okay, so you get a little breathing room.
Right. You are still cooking at home and driving a 10-year-old car, but you can afford a modest budget trip, a gym membership, and that coffee with a friend.
But that bumps your target portfolio back up to $1 million.
It does.
That extra 10 grand in annual spending means you have to save an additional $250,000, which adds about 4 to 6 years to your working timeline.
True. But looking at the trade-off,
Oh, extending your career by 5 years to avoid eating identical Tupperware meals for a decade seems like an incredibly rational purchase of your own sanity.
it creates a sustainable simplicity, for sure. But, if shrinking your life to fit a smaller portfolio feels too restrictive, you can attack the gap from the other side.
Subsidizing it.
Exactly. You subsidize the portfolio with a part-time gig. This is the concept of barista fire. You step completely away from the high-stress 60-hour-a-week corporate ladder and take a flexible, low-stress hourly job.
Let's actually look at the sheer power of the math here,
Yeah.
because Barista Fire is essentially a video game cheat code for real life.
It really is.
Let's say your ideal life requires $50,000 a year. Bengen's rule dictates you need a $1.25 million portfolio.
Right.
But if you take a part-time job that pays you $20,000 a year to, pour coffee or work at a bookstore, your actual portfolio gap drops to $30,000.
Yep. 50 minus 20.
Suddenly, you only need $750,000 invested. You just erased $500,000 of required savings.
Which translates to nearly a decade of grinding.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Simply by working 15 or 20 hours a week.
And the strategic play with Barista Fire goes beyond just the hourly wage. The sources explicitly highlight the value of targeting employers that offer subsidized health insurance to part-time workers.
Like Starbucks?
Exactly. Healthcare is historically the most volatile and expensive liability for an early retiree. By securing an employer plan, you are effectively outsourcing your biggest unpredictable risk.
Or, like the sources mentioned, you take a part-time job at a golf course to get free tee times. Or an airline for standby flights.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you let a part-time employer cover your most expensive hobbies and fringe costs while your investments handle your baseline survival. It's a fantastic hack. But for knowledge workers who don't want to stand behind a cash register, there is the hybrid fire model.
Yeah, hybrid fire relies on leveraging your specialized skills on a freelance or consulting basis.
So you're still in your industry, just
Yep.
on your own terms.
Right. You might consult intensely for 3 months of the year and travel for the other 9. The caution, the sources note here, though, involves the sequence of returns risk.
Because the income is so unpredictable.
Exactly. Freelance income is inherently lumpy. You might land a massive contract one year and struggle the next. Because your cash flow isn't a guaranteed hourly wage, you need a slightly larger cash buffer.
Just to make sure you aren't forced to sell off stock during a market downturn to cover a dry spell.
Exactly. Now, if manipulating your income stream still leaves you short, the sources return to location hacking, but on a macro permanent scale.
Okay.
We touched on the digital nomad earlier, but geo-arbitrage and expat fire are permanent structural shifts.
So geo-arbitrage is taking a high-income tech or finance salary from a tier 1 city like San Francisco, Seattle, or New York,
Right.
and permanently relocating to a tier 3 city where your dollar has dramatically more purchasing power, like Bozeman, Montana, or Boise. You keep the coastal income, but pay Midwestern expenses.
And taking that to the international level with expat fire fundamentally rewrites the withdrawal math. The strategy involves moving permanently to countries like Portugal, Costa Rica, or Thailand.
Though you do have to deal with the red tape.
Yeah. You have to navigate the complexities of residency visas, foreign taxation treaties, and local healthcare systems.
But the financial impact is staggering.
Oh, it's huge. If maintaining your standard of living in Seattle costs $60,000 a year, your target portfolio is $1.5 million. If that exact same lifestyle in Thailand costs only $35,000, Your required portfolio drops to 875,000.
So,
You are buying years of your life back simply by changing your zip code and embracing a different culture.
okay, but we have spent all this time looking at ways to shrink your life,
Oh.
subsidize your withdrawals, or stretch your dollars. What if you want to replace your salary entirely with hard assets?
Moving away from the 4% rule entirely.
Right. That forces us to look at the strategies that completely discard it, starting with real estate fire. Up until now, everything relies on saving cash, buying broad market index funds, and slowly selling them off. Real estate fire replaces the concept of a safe withdrawal rate with the pursuit of monthly cash flow.
The mechanism heavily favored in the sources here is house hacking, combined with extreme leverage.
How does that work?
You utilize primary residence loans, like an FHA loan, which allows for very low down payments, sometimes just 3.5%, to purchase multifamily properties like duplexes or triplexes.
Okay.
You live in one unit and rent out the others. The tenant's rental income covers the entire mortgage and the property taxes, effectively reducing your own housing cost to zero.
That's step one.
Right. Then you stockpile your W-2 income, wait a year, and buy the next property. The goal is to accumulate enough doors so that the net cash flow after the mortgage, maintenance, and vacancy reserves replaces your $100,000 salary entirely.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, what does this all mean in practice?
It's a lot of work.
Right. Let's be fiercely honest here. This is not early retirement.
Yeah.
The sources market this as passive income, but you are just trading your corporate manager for a dozen tenant bosses.
Oh, for sure.
You are the one getting the frantic phone call at 2 a.m. because the water heater flooded a basement. You are dealing with evictions, contractors, and local zoning laws. You're leveraging the bank's money to build incredible wealth, yes, but you are effectively taking on a second job as a property manager.
The active nature of real estate is definitely a major blind spot for many people. If your goal is truly passive asset growth without the middle of the night maintenance emergencies, the alternative is dividend fire.
Which takes a lot longer.
It does. Year 22 on our timeline. Instead of physical properties, you allocate your capital into a massive diversified portfolio of dividend-paying stocks and REITs.
The psychological advantage of dividend fire is massive, though. You never have to sell the underlying principal. You aren't watching your share count dwindle during a recession. You just sit back and collect the cash that these companies distribute every quarter.
The trade-off is the sheer volume of capital required and the timeline to get there. High-yield dividend portfolios often lag behind the total return of the broader stock market.
Because they're paying out instead of reinvesting in growth.
Exactly. If you are targeting a reliable 4% dividend yield to generate $50,000 a year, you need that $1.25 million fully funded. Because you aren't capturing the same aggressive growth as a tech-heavy index fund, it generally takes over 2 decades for our earner to build that critical mass.
It's a slow, methodical accumulation of income-producing shares.
Right. Which brings us to the back third of the timeline. Once we look past the 20-year mark, we hit the long game strategies.
Yeah, these don't look anything like the radical system hacking early retirements we started with.
No, they don't, but they are incredibly robust. Take pension fire. This is the ultimate anti-market strategy. It has absolutely nothing to do with index funds, withdrawal rates, or sequence of returns risk.
It is entirely built on loyalty and defined benefits.
Exactly. You dedicate yourself to a government entity, the military, or a heavily unionized industry. In exchange for 2 or 3 decades of service, you earn a guaranteed pension. You might receive $60,000 a year for the rest of your life, completely detached from whether the stock market is up or down.
The psychological safety is unparalleled.
But the cost is total commitment.
Yeah.
You are locking in your career trajectory for 20 to 30 years.
And that level of institutional loyalty is pretty rare today. But right next to it is the path that most people accidentally find themselves on if they're just, financially responsible. Slow fire.
Year 27.
Yeah. This is the direct antithesis of the extreme frugality sprint. You aren't hacking your location, you aren't slashing your grocery budget to the bone, and you definitely aren't launching a startup in your garage.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Slow Fire operates on a sustainable 15 to 20% savings rate. You fully fund your 401k match, you max out a Roth IRA, and then you just spend the rest.
You actually live your life.
Yeah, right. You buy the nice car, you take the international vacations in your 30s, and you don't stress over a spreadsheet every time you order takeout.
Sounds amazing.
By saving a steady 20%, you won't retire at 35, but you will likely reach financial independence around age 55 to 58.
Which is still nearly a decade earlier than the traditional retirement age.
Exactly. You get to enjoy the entirety of the journey without sacrificing the destination.
It is basically the balanced diet of personal finance.
Yeah.
But we cannot wrap up a deep dive on this topic without looking at the strategy that completely shatters the charts.
Oh, here we go.
It doesn't even fit on the timeline for our standard 100K earner. I am talking about the sheer excess of Fat Fire.
The steroids version.
Yes. Fat Fire is financial independence devoid of any budget constraints. It is the strategy built around extreme consumption.
We are talking about individuals planning to spend $150,000 to $500,000 every single year in retirement.
Multi-million-dollar primary residences, flying first class spontaneously, buying luxury watches, or dropping absurd amounts of money on rare collectibles like Pokemon cards, just because they appreciate the aesthetics.
It is the lottery winner lifestyle.
But to sustain a $200,000 annual spend using our 25 times rule, the math is unforgiving.
Very.
You need a liquid portfolio of at least $5 million. If you want to spend more, you're looking at $8, maybe $10 million.
Which is why Fat Fire is exclusively the domain of exceptionally high earners. It requires W-2 incomes in the multiple hundreds of thousands.
Like specialized surgeons.
Right, or VP-level software engineers at massive tech conglomerates, or founders who successfully exit their companies. For the average earner, it is mathematically impossible to reach without a massive, unpredictable liquidity event.
It is a completely different stratosphere of wealth. So let's pull the lens back and look at this sprawling landscape we've just covered.
It's a lot.
We started with the reliable crockpot of the 16-year traditional blueprint. We explored the volatile 3-year entrepreneur speed run. We looked at hacking the timeline with